One, uh, the topic for my talk today is what would your own version Ruby look like? My name's Stan, and I'm a Taiwanese engineer, but currently working remotely at an Irish company called Tikisoft. And as you can see from my photo, I'm also a cat lover, and this is my cat. He often occupies my seat. Also, because I work remotely, so he's also my only colleague. And this is he spying on me from my clothes. Okay, so I want to give this talk because I have my own version of Ruby. Some of you might have heard it. It's called Gobi. And today I want to share my visions of Gobi and how do they make Gobi different from Ruby. So this is today's outline. I will first introduce my language Gobi. Then I will share some thoughts and how does it feel about having my own language. And finally, I will talk about my visions of Gobi and my plans to achieve them. So what's Gobi? It's an object-oriented scripting language. It's written in Go, and of course, it's largely inspired by Ruby from syntax to internal designs. It's currently older than 1 year old now, and we just released version 019 this month. Also, it's already equipped some libraries required for writing web applications, so it can be used to write some simple apps already. Until now, the project has more than 2,600 stars, so I think this means that there are some people who interested in Gobi. And we now have 4 to 6 regular contributors to work on Gobi. Finally, there are more than 40 people in our Slack. It's not a big number, but we often have discussion or share information with each other. So you can join us on the Slack and to watch our discussions or maybe join us if you are interested. And this is the basic test framework we added last month. As you can see, it's largely inspired by RSpec. Also, we now have an official website for documentations. And our latest update is providing editor plugins for Sublime Text 3 and Vim. So I believe some of you might be curious about how does it feel to have my own language. To be honest, it feels quite heavy. First, I have lots of things to learn for leading the project. For example, I need to learn how to write good Go programs or learn how does Go works underneath. Also, I need to learn about how to write a good parser because we don't use parser generator. And for designing a new language, I also think that concurrency and thread safety is also an important topic to study. So, but because my main job is developing Rails applications, so I need to learn all this stuff after my work. I also have lots of things to plan, like plan for next release, or making a short-term plan for next 3 months, or a long-term plan for next year. And besides learning and planning, I have more things to do, like writing documents, managing tasks, or fixing issues, reviewing pull requests, or like today, I need to prepare talks for it. So sometimes I feel like there are too many responsibilities and feel quite stressful. But on the other hand, I also gained a lot from developing Gobi. First is that I can meet some brilliant engineers, and it's their help to make Gobi moving forward. Also, it feels great when people recognize your work, especially when they are willing to join the Slack or even contribute to the project. And most importantly, I can apply my ideas on the language. This is also what I'm going to talk about next. So here is my visions of Gobi. First is that it should make users as productive as possible. And then I want it to have great concurrency support, since it is essential to writing high traffic web applications, and also because it's written in Go, so I wish it can at least inherit this feature from it. And finally, I hope it can be extended with existing resources, so we can reuse things instead of building everything from scratch. I think these three visions can be converted into these three simple core values, which is productivity, concurrency, and extensibility. But Gobi is only 1 year old now, and we don't have enough statistics about its concurrency performance. Also, we are still looking forward to optimize its concurrency support. So this is why the concurrency part won't be included in this talk. And today I will mainly focus on our plan for making Gobi more productive. But before that, I want to give a short introduction about our plan for improving its extensibility. I think most of us will agree that both Ruby and Go has mature community and has a lot of existing resources. This is a chart from GitHub. It shows how many repositories every major language has. You can see that Ruby has around 870,000 repositories, while Go has around 285,000. That's more than 1 million repositories in total. So I believe it would be great if we can use these resources in an easy way. And Gobi has two approaches to help us achieve this goal. First is the plugin library, and the second one is Ruby compatible syntax and similar internal design. So let's talk about the plugin library first. It's based on Go's plugin build mode, and it allows users to compile and access Go packages during the runtime. In this way, you can call Go packages using 100% Gobi, and it's very easy. I will show you an example. In this example, we will ping a PostgreSQL database just using Go packages. This is how you can generate a plugin object. And you can see that we are able to import Go packages and link functions. Then we can call first-class functions on a plugin object. And finally, you can call functions on a Go pointer or object. This feature is now supported on both Mac OS and Linux. But why being able to call Go libraries is important for Gobi? This is because I think Go is one of the most popular language to write high traffic web applications. So I thought Gobi should include Go's concurrency support and libraries for helping building high traffic apps. So with Gobi, you will be able to write high traffic applications using Ruby-like syntax and object system, and of course the resource from Go packages. And then let's talk about Ruby compatible syntax and internal design. This is a piece of source code from our test framework, and I believe all you can read and understand every line of it. And from my personal experience on Ruby, I think around 80% of our code are defining classes or modules or defining encoding methods. So theoretically, if we can provide same syntax for doing above things, users can easily port Ruby gems to Gobi with only few modifications. So, and in order to let users build and share their own Gobi libraries using above features, we will introduce a library management tool for Gobi libraries in next release. And we will also integrate Ghost dependency management tool in the future. So let's talk about today's main topic, our features and plans to make Gobi more productive. For me, a productive language must be good at these three parts, which is readability, consistency, and predictability. So I will explain how do we improve them. First is the readability. For me, it means that how semantical a programming language is. And I think Ruby syntax is perfectly semantical. So this is why Gobi has Ruby compatible syntax. And the next one is how we keep Gobi programs consistent. The consistency here means that how many ways a developer can write a simple the same program. In Ruby, there usually are several ways because Ruby is a very flexible language. But for Gobi, I want it to be less flexible because I'm sick of the best practices or style guides. First, it takes time for community to create them. Also, for individual developers, it also takes time to learn those practices. And most importantly, developers, including me, still need to adjust RubyConf settings by projects after all this works. So let's take a look at two Ruby best practice examples. And the following examples are all from a famous repository called Ruby Style Guide. First, it suggests that we shouldn't use else condition for unless keyword. Also, we shouldn't use the then keyword in if statement. I think in an ideal condition, these two examples shouldn't even exist in a style guide, because obviously they can be forbidden from the language level at the first place. So here's our feature and plan to make Gobi programs consistent. First is to have straight syntax rule at the first place. Let's keep using the if statement as our example. In Gobi, there is no unless keyword, no inline condition, so every developer can only write conditional statement in one way. And let's take a look at our second example, the parameters order. But before that, let me explain why does the parameters order matter. This is also an example from Ruby Style Guide, like previous examples. As you can see, if you don't define parameters in certain order, it will cause bizarre behavior beside the inconsistency. So in Gobi, you need to define different types of parameters in certain order. you need to define normal parameters in the forefront, and then normal parameters with default value. The third type will be keyword parameters, and after that will be keyword parameters with default value, and the last type will be display parameter. This keeps the method definition consistent, also prevents unexpected behaviors. So these two examples explain about how Gobi's syntax rules are designed and why did we choose the strict way. And then we will provide official coding guidance, which will include coding style guide and coding practices. We will have these guidances once the community grows bigger. And finally, we will provide official formatter and linter based on our official guidance. Because we know programmers are lazy, so we will let users format their code with only one command. And most importantly, all users will get the same result. Our goal is to eliminate RubyConf settings and reduce arguments. And finally, we will try to keep Gobi's code highly predictable, because I want to make Gobi follow the principle of this astonishment. According to its wiki page, principle of this astonishment means that a system should behave in a way that users expect it to behave, which means users should not be astonished by its behavior. In Ruby, some features can sometimes make it hard to predict a code's behavior, like monkey patching or method missing. So today I want to introduce two approaches that can make Gobi programs more predictable. The first is limiting the effective scope, and the second one is making the target explicit. So let's talk about the limiting the effective scope first. I think Ruby is already using this strategy to make some of its features more predictable, like refinements. And because this is a relatively used feature, so I will give a short demonstration for it. This is our sample code. You can see that we extend the C class inside module M, use the refine keyword. And to activate the refinement, you need to use the using keyword with the module that contains the refinement. And if your method definitions include or you call the method full before using the M module, it will be unreachable and raise no method error. But after using the refinement module, you can use the full method. This is a part of introduction of refinements on RubyDoc. It says that refinements are designed to reduce the impact of monkey patching by providing a way to extend class locally. So as you can see from the sample code and the introduction, Ruby uses refinements to limit the effective scope of monkey patching. And I want to experiment same idea on method missing. I want to make method missing non-inheritable by default, which means if you don't explicitly say you want to use method missing, you won't get unexpected behavior from the inheritance chain. And this is a method missing example of in Ruby. Because bar inherits full class, so If you call a non-existent method on bar instance, it will trigger full classes method missing behavior. And this will be how method missing work in Gobi. As you can see, even though bar inherits food, it doesn't inherit its method missing behavior. In this way, we can prevent unexpected method missing behaviors from the ancestor classes or included modules. However, I know sometimes we still need to use method missing to be inheritable. For example, like when the full class is an abstract class, then you can explicitly enable it in every children classes by using the inherit method missing method. And now the method missing behavior is inherited. Because you need to explicitly enable inheritance of method missing, so you can always know what class will trigger method missing just by looking at its definition. And the second approach I want to experiment is making the target explicit. To be more clear, I want to experiment it on the super keyword in Ruby. Actually, I want to replace super with super from, like this. The only difference will be that you need to specify your super target in the first argument. You can see that you need to pass full class to the super from. And I think this has two benefits. First is that you can easily understand where to find the super method. And I will explain the origin of this idea using my personal experience. One day I was trying to find a super source from our codebase monkey patching. I think it might refer to another module in ActiveRecord. So I checked the source code and found this. I was like this. I found that ActiveRecord includes more than 30 modules. And in fact, none of them implement the toJSON method. Finally, it turns out the super refers to is active support to JSON with active support encoder module. So I was thinking it would be great if the super can just tell us where it refers to, like this. And of course, it will be a little more verbose, but it will also make it far more easier to predict the code's behavior. The second benefit of superfront will be the freedom to specify any ancestor as source. You can see from the example, the no members to XML method can now choose users method implementations as its super target. So if you call to XML on no members instance, you will only get email and the name field without member ID. These two features will be implemented in Gobi in next few months, and I will share any feedbacks we get in the future. So to summarize our plan, first we tend to make Gobi have strict syntax rules by providing official guidance. This way, developers can collaborate with each other more easily and reduce arguments. And then we will forbidding method missing inheritance by default. This is to limit the method missing's effective scope, but you can still enable it explicitly to make it more clear in your code base. And finally, we will use superfront to replace the super keyword. This is to force users to specify the super source, and also allows user to choose the source from any ancestor class or module. And we are still looking for more people to join us. And here's some links you can check out, like our GitHub repo, Slack, our official site, and finally is the Twitter. I will pause here for a few seconds more. And this is my talk. Thanks for your listening.
Thank you, Mr. Low, for the informative and interesting talk. So now it comes to Q&A session. Is there anyone wanting to ask a question? Yeah.
Hey, it looks really good that you use this super from, but why are you replacing the super? I mean, usually when you use super, you don't care what do the classes where that you are inheriting. So maybe for a specific purposes, you must to put what is the class that is including in the super class. But
what he means is that the super don't care what it originates from, right?
yeah.
So what is the purpose you would like to?
I mean, why you want to replace? I mean, sometimes you don't need to know the. I mean, most of the time when you're programming Ruby, you just call super and you don't care what does the super class.
I think if you are the person who write this code, maybe you don't care. But sometimes, because I have contributed to Rails for several times, and so I often digging into Rails code base, and I often see super, and because Rails often use a pattern called God object, which means one class will include many modules. So it will be very hard if you just look at super, and it will be very hard to know what the super refers to if you are a reader of the code instead of the writer. So this feature is actually for the readers of the code instead of the writers of the code.
I see. Thanks.
Does anyone else want to ask a question? Yep.
Thanks for a great talk. I got like 2 questions. The first one is you talk about package management, right?
Yeah.
So as we see on the GitHub page, Go has like 200,000, right?
Yeah,
And Ruby has 800,000.
Yeah.
But you're only supporting Go. Do you have any plan to support Ruby package as well?
Of course, we will want to do this, but as Matt said yesterday, it's relatively easy to reproduce 80% of Ruby's feature, but it's very hard to reproduce the rest of 20%. So instead of supporting Ruby gems directly, we tend to make it easy to port Ruby gems to Gobi library.
Yeah, but I mean, porting is always a hard work, right? So I think you can take one approach that a recent new language called Swift use. So if your language is dynamic enough, you can just call other language interpreter directly, right? So you can just call Ruby gems, right? You can just invoke Ruby in another process, right?
Yes, we can do that. And actually, one feature we will introduce is that we will be able to call C extensions through the goal underneath. So once we have implemented that feature, we will be able to call C Ruby from Gobi.
Okay, cool. And my second question is, so you looks like you like strict rules for the programming language, right?
Yes.
So I wonder if there already has more dynamic feature of Ruby, or will you introduce it, like dynamic evaluation and dynamic method definition?
We already introduced some meta programming feature like in instance eval, but of course we have more strict usage. For example, like instance eval, we don't accept string as the argument. We only accept block object. So of course we will introduce some very useful Ruby meta programming feature in the future, but we also will try to make it more strict, a little bit strict.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So, my question is about the explicit super2. So, I think that Gobi has modules and some kind of mix in like Ruby.
Yes.
Yes. So, in that case, that the laziness of super's method resolution is essential when the module is included another class. So, I mean that when the method in module called super, then what the super is will be resolved after the module is included. So what do you think about that?
I think it doesn't matter if the super is in the module or class, because ultimately it will only be one source. So what you need to do is to specify that source, no matter it's from a class or a module, because even if it's from a module, you still have a module name, right? So you can always specify a target for your super source.
Yeah, but the module will be included to another class, and when we are defining the module, we cannot know the name of the class.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. Actually, I haven't had a clear solution for this type of situation. So we can discuss this later, but currently I don't have an answer for this.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
First, thank you for your talk. It was very interesting. What I noticed is that you talked a lot about technical side, and something that I found very curious is that you pretty much started this talk saying that creating your own language kind of is very heavy to you, and I don't know if it's something you really meant as a bad side of creating your own language, but I'm pretty sure you learned a lot of things and it was a very interesting work. But what I'm wondering is, this talk is create your own version of Ruby, so create your own, create something very different from what exists already. And sorry, my question is it actually something you would recommend to anyone here to go on this path, or just contribute to what other languages suggest already?
Of course, I will encourage every one of you to create your own language because it's a very fun process. And also, when I first created Gobi, the purpose is not to be this big. It's originally I want to create Gobi is only for learning the internal structure of Ruby. So I think create your own version of language. At first of course you will choose a language as your model language, and you will try to implement the same feature from it. So in this process, you can learn about how lab programming language works and why the origin designer designed that language. And I think this is a very good learning process. And for another example, actually, our design in the Gobi's VM, we also have value stack and code stack, and their design or even the instructions name is all copy from Ruby. So I think it will always be a good approach to learn things by rebuilding it. So of course I will recommend you to do that. And by the stressful part, the stress source is from I need to do far more things than I plan to do. At first I just want to write a language, and now I need to maintain the documentation. I need to manage issues and communicate with different maintainers. So I think this is mainly the stress from, but the process of writing the language is happy.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we still have 1 minute. Any question? Okay, it seems no more question. Oh, still one.
So I think Gobi is a kind of interpreted language also.
Yes.
So is there a plan like to add a JIT in the future? Then we have like Gobi 3x or something similar.
Actually, in some micro benchmark, we are like 10 times or 20 times slower than Ruby. So I think we need to do some basic optimization beforehand. And of course, once we reach that point, we will plan to introduce JIT into Gobi to improve its performance further. But before that, we still have a lot of work to do.
Okay. So that's it. Okay. Thanks everyone for asking question. If you have further question, you can ask Mr. Low later privately. Okay. Thank you very much.